Alice encountered the Cheshire Cat and asked him for directions. The cat did tell her that there were two paths, one leading to the Hatter's place and the other to the March Hare's house. After some consideration, Alice decided to go to the March Hare's house. In front of the house, beneath a large tree, sat a table where the March Hare and the Hatter were sipping tea. A dormouse was nestled in between them, fast asleep. They used the dormouse as a cushion, resting their elbows on it and conversing right above its head. It must be quite uncomfortable for the dormouse, Alice thought, but it seemed to be sleeping soundly. The table was quite large, and the three of them were crowded at one end. "No room, no room," they exclaimed when they saw Alice approaching. "There's plenty of room," Alice replied as she sat down in a large armchair at one end of the table. "Would you like some tea?" the March Hare asked enthusiastically. Alice surveyed the table but found nothing except for tea. "I don't see any tea," she replied. "There isn't any," said the March Hare. "You shouldn't say tea then," Alice remarked. "It's very rude to say tea when there isn't any," the March Hare retorted. "I didn't know it was your table," Alice retorted. "It's laid for a great many more than three." The Hatter looked at Alice for a while, and this was the first time she had spoken. "Your hair wants cutting," he said. "You ought to learn not to make personal remarks. It's very rude." Alice was a little startled by this, but she explained herself. "Why is a raven like a writing desk?" the Hatter asked. "What's the answer?" "I haven't the slightest idea," Alice replied. "Nor I," said the Hatter. Alice sighed. "I think you might do something better with the time than waste it in asking riddles that have no answers." The Hatter and the March Hare fell into thought. But the Dormouse just snoozed on. After a while, the Hatter broke the silence by asking, "What day of the month is it?" Alice took out her pocket watch, which was behaving erratically, and listened to it as it continued to shake. After a moment, she said, "The 4th, 2 days wrong," sighed the Hatter. "I told you butter wouldn't suit the works." He looked angrily at the March Hare. "It was the best butter," the March Hare meekly replied. "Yes, but some crumbs must have got in as well." The Hatter grumbled. "You shouldn't have put it in with the bread knife." The March Hare took the watch and dipped it into his teacup, letting it steep for a while. Then he pulled it out and checked it again. Besides declaring it to be the best butter, no other words were uttered. Alice, curious, leaned over to look. "What a funny watch! It tells the day of the month, and it doesn't tell what o'clock it is. Why should it?" The Hatter muttered. "Does your watch tell you what year it is?" "Of course not," Alice replied. "But that's because it stays the same year for such a long time." The Hatter grumbled something inaudible, and Alice found his conversation rather nonsensical. Still, it was pure, good English, and she felt it was impolite to say otherwise. She sighed and said, "I don't quite understand your riddle." The Dormouse had fallen asleep again. The Hatter poured some hot tea onto the Dormouse's nose. The Dormouse woke up with a start but didn't open its eyes as it said, of course, I was just going to say that." "Have you guessed the riddle yet?" the Hatter said. "No, I give it up." "What's the answer?" "I haven't the slightest idea," said the Dormouse. "Nor I," said the March Hare. Alice sighed. "I think you might do something better with the time than waste it in asking riddles that have no answers."